But, now my other cat's name is Ziggy the Fourth. That's his full name, Ziggy the Fourth. It's a tradition in my family. Alright, cat, I need this other hand. I need it. I do. I need it. Alright, thank you. Okay, fresh new series. Battle for France. In the top left, already seeing out a probe. It is the blue Protoss Shadown. In the bottom right, as the red Terran, it is MarineLord. Bit of an old school name, who's been back playing for quite some time. But, yeah, playing these online tournaments, usually around round of 8, I would say. Rule of how many cats you can have is number of people in house plus 2. I mean, that's a fair assessment as well. Until you talk about people who, like, have 3 kids that share one room. That might be a little much. No tail, just a tiny tail. That's the difference. Alright, so Shadown, I said, was sending out that probe. Would have been not really worth it just due harassment, right? So we knew that a pylon was coming down. And since it is so quick, right? So the second pylon, it's the first pylon. We do expect that gateway because you literally can't build anything else. That's how that works. So perhaps a bit of the max packs still expanding behind this aggression. But getting the kill potential of a command center is huge. The Terrans don't have a ton of production early on when they're going for that command center. And because this is one of the few builds that can punish a command center first and still be worthwhile in a macro sense, you don't have Terrans go for high ground command centers. It's just not worth it. You want to scout this and defend this, which MarineLord does scout this. Most of the Terran vs. Protoss builders now are gas second, which will include an SCV scout as well, and in this case, it certainly did. So, no gateway at home. It's out in the map. He actually goes ahead and just immediately cancels the command center. So he knows it's the Nexus. He knows this isn't going to be like proxy 4 gate, suddenly 4 zealots show up, right? But he still thinks that it is more worth it to cancel the command center than try and hold it. And he's probably right about that. If you get an immediate scout, say you instantly send an SCV to the pylon, that's when you might be able to build a bunker and dance around and whatnot to actually defend your command center on the low ground. But more ideally, you started the command center on the high ground anyways. Well, if you get a later scout, you still are able to cancel command center when it's about, like, what, 30% done as opposed to 70% done, which is still nicer. You also get to use this Reaper not for defense, but for harassment, which has forced the recall from Shadown Zealots, takes the pressure off MarineLord, even though he was totally prepared, and really isn't, is still not ideal for either player. At least put a bit more of the pressure on the Protoss. I mean, I still think the Protoss is happy to get a canceled command center. MarineLord even not just canceling the command center, but getting a factory before rebuilding the command center. Like, it is a very late command center. It's really messed up his build here. But for Shadown, just have to recall 2 zealots. I mean, they kind of did their job. It would have been nicer to only recall 1 zealot, I suppose. That might have been the ideal situation. Only building 1 zealot and then getting them to cancel, but not that he would have known that. So, still good for Shadown, who is now on to Stalker production. Coming from an odd place, of course, but yeah. Oh, wow, that Twilight Council. Could have been for Blink. Could have been a normal game from here on out. But he's actually going to go for the Dark Shrine. Now, the Reaper never got in close enough to see the technological choices being made here, and that's a big problem. Big problem indeed. Because we still have a proxy gateway, so it's not even that you need a war prism right now. Damn, you need a new wrist rest? It's hard to say, man. It's talking about the one on my keyboard. Yeah. I've had this for like 6 years. I don't know, it still works, so... When's the next back seats? Maybe this Thursday, but Pig's not available for it. How did MarineLord 2-0 Clem? I mean, it's a good question that I cannot answer. I didn't catch the games, but MarineLord is a very good player, and Clem's PvT has been proven to be his worst matchup. So, oh, that's kind of cool. Blocking out the Wood of Mine from being picked up. But you know what's even cooler than that, guys? DT's warping in right next to your base. Isn't that super cool? MarineLord has no idea about this. He is actually preparing for, you know, anything, basically. Like, an Oracle has already flown by in terms of timing, so he knows it's not a Stargate, but is it Blink, or is it what, or is it, you know, this, that, or the other? It looks like the lack of units responding might have also given him some idea, but unfortunately the missile turret just a bit late for the first ET. It sneaks into the main base. The command center does have a scan. Just needs to get the units over here, and this is not nearly as bad as it could have been. I think the Wood of Mine drop, not scouting the Dark Shrine directly, but just the amount of units was already a nice little heads up. Oh, okay, hold on here. Is that what you're doing? And the missile turret is a very nice safety tool. It's just something that you should probably get. If you don't know what they're doing, get the missile turret at the front. That type of thing. Now, Shadown still has the possibility to use DTs with this Warp Prism, and as the game goes on, he still is going to get into a third Nexus. Obviously, Archons are now an option as well, but he is not going to have a lot of units, and they're not going to be upgraded either. So, MarineLord only taking 4 SCVs worth of damage in one scan. That was not the damage he was looking for. For what was an, you know, good start to this game, following up with the Dark Shrine did not help him at all. It actually helped MarineLord. So MarineLord takes out the proxy. He's not going to find this pylon, but we're talking about the Warp Prism now anyways. And is going to be always bothered by harassments. Can he actually do anything to that third Nexus, though, is the question with this push. MarineLord has his 3 barracks done and producing when they can, at least. So he will have some reinforcements back at home. But almost all of his army is moving across the map, trying to hit before Shadown has enough units, or this Colossus, for instance, to actually hold. He's hitting almost with all of his upgrades as well, so this is pretty darn scary for Shadown, but he's got 2 Archons dropping into the main base. Archon drops against Terran, not too popular. Where are the medevacs here? MarineLord actually... Wow, those were his first 2 medevacs. That drastically changes things. The quickness of this attack perhaps not worth going before +1 was done, before medevacs were available. He does snipe the sentries, which is a really nice thing to do with the last second, but he has taken some damage from the Archon drops, and Shadown with the hold on his third base, with the harassment of the Archons, with the availability of his Warp Prism, has once again taken control over this game, as MarineLord has not gotten to a third CC, is now feeling very uncomfortable going for it on location, which he would really like to do, and now has lost so much of his army that a follow-up against this Colossus tech is not going to feel nearly as good. Wouldn't mind dropping in the natural, not finding anything, unfortunately, just finding 2 Colossus, which is a very scary sight. Third one's already on the way, alongside Thermal Lance. So they will be fully upgraded, indeed. MarineLord. I don't know, I really do think that if you had waited, even if the Colossus was available, if you had waited for +1 and medevacs, that also means that the Archons don't do any damage whatsoever with their initial push. Like, that might have been better. But, this might be game over. Shadown still, you know, didn't go for any upgrades. Just going for pure army here. Only went for charge, not blink. He has made sacrifices in this game, but they might just be the correct sacrifices. That was a really nice drop because it caught a Colossus and a DT. This is actually trying to turn things around, trying to turn this into a base race as MarineLord realizes where the heck is your army. He's been bulking up his reinforcements in the main base. The supply depot is getting a nice choke for those Wood of Mine to take out the Zealots. Even the Archon getting extremely low. It's going to get hit once and pop off. There you go. And there is a no Warp Prism? Oh, it's not. It's just not in phase mode. Well, it actually might not matter. There's not a whole lot of gateways left over. One more gateway is powered. A DT not doing its job, swiping away here. These gateways also depowered. Shadown cannot reinforce despite having a Warp Prism. Looks like he force-footed away some of the army, but broke it with his Colossus. Loses the sentries, but here comes the Warp Prism, not to reinforce, but rather to juggle up against Marauders. It's going to be very difficult to do, but there's also a critical Immortal in the mix, helping tear down these Marauders. The SCVs have already been pulled. Those are the last SCVs to pull, as every single one seems to be going down here. MarineLord does have 3 CC if this turns into some really awkwardly weird base race. But he's going to need to start lifting buildings, honestly. And he had to have taken out that Dark Shrine as well. That should have been like one of the #1 priorities for sure. And he did. Third Nexus now going to be under fire. Shadown tried to build gateways over here, but they might not actually get to warp in anything. Zealot gets taken out easily. Colossus on the wrong side of the recall gets taken out by the Marauders very, very quickly. But the Marauders now dying to the Immortal need to skedaddle. The Medivacs are out of energy. The Mortal almost dies. He taps it once and gets out of there. Ooh, this is a weird game, you guys. MarineLord is down to 4 workers. He's down 26 workers with an even army supply as these Vikings pop out. He does have the upgrade lead as well. I forgot the +1 armor, but has always had that +1 weapons. And with a couple of Vikings and the severe lack of things that shoot up here from Shadown, the Vikings should be able to win out against the Colossus, even in their lower numbers. If we're talking someone who could remake Stalkers quickly, who has Blink as well and can maneuver around those Vikings, then the Colossus might survive. But we're not talking about that, are we? We have 4 Stalkers, an Archon, and a Sentry. They're not very mobile, and the Colossus is already half dead. The Vikings might just be able to cut it, but really critically, the Vikings have to kill the Colossus before it gets any attacks on the ground army. The Marauders are chonky. They can take a couple Colossus attacks, but that's not the ideal situation. Even talking about Medivac energy being used when it doesn't have to be, that's the type of game we're watching if MarineLord is going to actually win this one. More charges are being added in, however, and that actually might be too much to handle. The charge lot numbers with the Nexus coming up on the right side, with the 3rd Nexus not being killed, that might be what really cuts it, and that is indeed what happens. Colossus not even needed in the fight. He just pulled that one back and let the rest of the army do its thing. If MarineLord hadn't gone down to 4 SCVs, if he had been muling a base that entire time perhaps, and was building alongside Shadown, maybe we're talking 8 Marauders in the Vikings, which can land after killing the Colossus. And maybe that's a difference that lets him back into the game, but he was truly not producing. He was truly not mining. Thank you very much, Fog Sky, for the Twitch Prime sub. What a fun little game right there. Game number 2 should be coming up soon. Mana is waiting for probably showtime in a quarterfinal. Thermal Namshar is happening alongside this series. DNS 2-0 Lambo. Lambo not doing so hot lately. Maybe he needs, Bugs Bunny to give him the magic stuff, which is actually just water. Here, Marine waits for, I would say sort of, generally, because I don't know much about Healer, but Healer took out Harsum, and he just took out Razorblader, who's a pretty good UK Terran. Terran from the UK. That's an odd way to put that. And that's going to round out our bracket. Alright. Game number 2. Don't think it can get as crazy as the last game, but we'll see. Kind of depends on Shadown. He was the one that made it so weird. In the bottom left, he is up 1. It is the Protoss Shadown. And in the top right, as the Red Terran, we have MarineLord. I have no idea what this clan is, but I like the design of it. Very cartoony. Probe being sent out quickly, but might just be a proxy scouting probe. Certainly not as quick as last game.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the overmind.
Thank you, Patch Tech, for that 4-month resub. Much appreciated. Thanks for sticking around. So many base races and PvTs. Is there? Maybe. I mean, I'd say it's as likely as TVT. The only reason TVZ doesn't really have many base races is because creep is all-encompassing. You don't blitz Zerg on creep. If you're getting into a base race with a Zerg player, you're putting yourself in a much more difficult position. Just with how creep works. So, yeah, I'd say TVP is just as likely as TVT to have a base race. It's the first one I've seen in a while. One that got down to that sort of wire. You know, a base trade, a literal, like, I attacked your base, you attacked mine, and we both left and tried to recover. Like, I've seen that recently. But for an actual, like, oh, you need to rebuild Nexus and float command centers type, that's been a while since I've seen that. Not that I cast the most games. At one point in my career, I could easily say that, but not anymore. Nice Reaper block on the cliff. Lack of scouting did certainly contribute to last game. Talking about the proxy gateway, talking about the DT shrine that wasn't scouted but was still well defended. In this game, Reaper's not getting any scouting that direction. It could actually just pop out here and get some scouting though if it wanted to. Also just really nice to deny mining. The other pylon was put down in the natural though, so shield battery being available here is really critical to dealing with this quickly. You could wait for a second and a third unit to take care of this, but 2 stalkers without a shield battery, it's a little too tricky. With a shield battery, it's a lot nicer. He's getting ready to attack the SCV, but the shield battery is actually so far away. This is still very awkward. Now repositioning. The Reaper's going to go ahead and target down the probes because they think they can go back to mining, and MarineLord is making the best out of the situation for sure. He might also be able to get a scout into the main. Nah, he's not going to try and go for it. SCV will die, but the bunker is going to be salvaged, and the Reaper does get out for another chance at getting more scouting done. Shadown is going for just some good old blink tech here. Question would be if he adds on 3 gateways or just 2, or hell, even 1. 1 gateway, giving you a total of 2 gateways, actually was the way to do things as far as the macro blink build went, right? So much more talk is right now about the 4-gate that Parting has been doing. Made very popular thanks to GSL, right? But before that was the big question. There was the just developments of the meta that made it 2 gateways being the preferred macro. Now this is one too many gas geysers to do what I was talking about, which is the faster 3rd nexus into charge, into double upgrades, or a single upgrade, either one. So we might actually have a robotics tech. Robotics bay, there it is, yeah. Robotics bay come down and actually be going into Colossus. So one of the old standards of PvT, actually. This is probably one of the oldest builds in Starcraft 2 history. Very different pacing because of the economy now, but yeah, oldest builds probably. That Widowmine drop was, I think he's trying to circumvent it. This got really awkward, really fast. So many probes going down. That's a total of 9, and both Widowmine survive. Yeah, I think the Stalkers went to go find it, thinking that they still had about 5 seconds. And that, if it was 5 more seconds, they would have been in perfect position to cut off the Widowmine drop, but a little awkward there, a little awkward. Lucent Phoenix is going to get a good scout on the main base of MarineLord. I mean, things you want to check out here is how fast are Sim and Combat shields coming down, and if they're going into tanks. Now, I thought this was going to be Colossus. That would have been the old standard. But no, it's actually a Warp Prism Disruptor drop. Okay, so not the oldest build in StarCraft 2. Not anymore. So literally only capable of existing in Legacy of the Void. Although yesterday I was just like doing like, you know, reminiscing with people in Maynard's chat, and I found out that the Disruptor model was the Replicator model from Heart of the Swarm beta, when they thought they could make a Protoss unit that's literally replicated any unit it saw at the cost of its life. It was like stupidly expensive. It was like 300, 200 or something like that. Not viable at all. They definitely needed to scrap that idea. But yeah, the model ended up being used for disruptors. 3 years later. All right, anyways, so disruptor drop, that's really a mix-up, you know? Like, when we talk about disruptor drops, we're talking about more so in like that robo first, getting this much quicker than what Shadown is doing. So MarineLord should be very surprised by this. And not only that, like, it's just not a very common thing to see anymore. He has seen that the 4 gases were taken on those 2 bases, so he's probably expecting the robotics bay, but yeah, I don't know about the disruptor drop. Not that that's necessarily going to kill him, but do keep in mind he might not be watching his army go through the middle of the map, which he would certainly be doing if he knew disruptors could just suddenly appear out of nowhere. Bush is almost ready to go, though. It's got it's got stamina combat shields and 1 attack upgrade on the way. Shadown's looking for the army. He's not going to find it. Actually, very similar to him missing the Widowmine drop. This is so awkward. Apparently, he was going to attack MarineLord. This is not a build I am familiar with at all. And we're going to get to another base race, so okay. Third command center is not going to finish. 4 Widowmine should be able to burrow and help out a little bit here, but Blink is available. Disruptors can take them out as well. SCVs are quickly pulled. He might actually think this is only the Stalkers, but as he takes down the 3rd Nexus with ease, he might realize that this has got to be a little more than that. Sees the Sentry, sees the Immortal. The Disruptors are coming back home, so they still haven't really been revealed. Tanks don't die to them that quickly, so it's actually, yeah, you need to try and get a better positioning here. Seeing that it is a speedy Warp Prism, I already had indicated it's Disruptor drops, though, and he's gonna split like the wind. Those are good splits. 2 Disruptors now down to 1, and Shadown just has to tap out. Misjudging the timing a tad there. He actually had the scout to say what type of 2-base push it was going to be, and with the tanks included, but you still have you know, really looking forward to the stim combat shields finishing and the medevacs being you know, popping out. That's something that you need to do that timing, right? I thought Shadown would have known it, but he also, I guarantee, knows a Widowmine drop timing, and he was still about 5 seconds off from actually catching it. So it's funny that there was almost like a foreshadowing of that situation with the Widowmine drop. So that's 1-1. Oh, the saying was never base race a Terran. That's a very old and outdated saying. Just like saying Protoss late game armies are the best army you can get is also a very outdated saying. Game number 3 is going to be on Eternal Empire. Series all tied up. In the bottom left is the blue Protoss, he is Shadown. Top right, we have the red Terran MarineLord. Just too many units being able to spread and split like that means that Shadown's whole idea stops working, really. I get the idea of his build, though. And we didn't really get to see it executed because it was just a bit awkward there. But I get the idea. If you find a Terran player about to move out, but still ultimately held up in their natural, behind a bunker, behind a wall, behind a 3rd CC, that disruptor is suddenly super deadly. That is just one of the deadliest situations to be in because you don't have any room to split or even back away from the damn thing. Plus, it's a huge surprise because no one does that attack. But when you're out in the map like that, and you've already even kind of pre-split just because of the AI attacking different things, like, it's not going to work out as well. So it was a really cool idea, a very different build, and then the timing I have not seen, but it didn't get to look good. which can happen in StarCraft, right? We can build up this huge one base all in and say, oh, it's really hard to defend, and then someone, you know, they lose the Liberator before they even get across the map, and they're like, well, okay, so here's the thing. It's gonna look really dumb now, but it's kind of like that. Oh, this is really cool. This is gonna be a great idea. Oh, well, they base traded instead, so yeah, it's kind of dumb now. Huh. Not a build order loss, it's a positioning loss. If Shadown had just been 10 seconds I mean, well, I guess it kind of is a build order loss. Like, it's a timing loss. Like, I can't believe Shadown does that build and always misses the army, right? Is what I'm trying to cycle through here. So, there must be something that he missed. Maybe just mistimed a little. He did lose those 9 probes, right? At least, right, with the Widowmine drop going down. Imagine he doesn't lose the Widowmine. Lose anything to the Widowmine drop, sorry. His attack is probably that 10 seconds faster to catch MarineLord before he pushes out. So it's not a build order loss, it was a timing loss. Yeah. Tanks are helpful against disruptors, though, that said. Like, the tanks being added in, it wasn't just the typical, like, 1-1-1 into 2 additional barracks, swap it all off type thing. Like, the tanks do help against disruptors, but more so that build was about finding someone choked in their own natural and not prepared. So the tanks might have been sieged, but not necessarily protecting the bio. So, I mean, it's worth studying when we see it actually used correctly. Right, but that was just not a game that was going to look very good. So, on to the next one, on to the last game between these two. Shadown is going for a Twilight Council right into that Robo, actually. So, not going to be the Blink build either here. No, wait. No, he is doing it right. Yes. No, this is what I would expect. Okay. Let me reconfigure here. No, he is going to be going to Blink build. So a 3rd gas should be coming down, not a 4th, and he is going into the 4 gateway build version of this as well, so, okay. I've reconfigured. MarineLord's going for a 1-1-1 and actually staying on the 1-1-1 for an extended period of time. So he's going for a Hellion and a Reaper, so just a little bit of harassment and scouting, and then into the Banshee and producing tanks behind that. So this is kind of important, and he really wants to see if a 4th gateway is around, which is exactly what Shadown doesn't want to let him see, and well, there it sees it. So that is information more so than any lacking 3rd gas that may or may not should have been down already, and whether that Warp Prism pop out with a Warp Prism. Seeing the 4th gateway, easy peasy. That's the best scout you can really get, and that is a pretty crucial Hellion indeed. The Reaper is going to have a second chance at scouting that as well, but doesn't need to. So MarineLord now knows that he has to be careful with how he positions his units. He has everything set up to defend against this, but, you know, even using his Banshee offensively is a bit of a decision to make instead of preparing for what could be a lot of Stalkers all of a sudden. Probably okay to send the first Banshee out, right? Because it's not a build that's ready to go yet here for Shadown. Shadown adds a Twilight Council, or Dark Shrine, sorry. Maybe just like Dark Templars. And does add on both gases at the same time. So I think he's already planning to transition. And the 4th gateway, if it's not used, it's only 150 minerals. That's not the worst thing ever. The worst thing ever would be having it scouted and then trying to commit to it and then not doing anything at all. Where is that Dark Shrine? He's doing a great job hiding it. Yeah, it's just over here. The Nexus being set up, it looks like it's about to be set up, is a lie, at least for now. He hasn't got back in to see the gas timings. But at this point, that Warp Prism really should have appeared with some Stalkers, so he should be thinking, okay, you're not doing that anymore. And if you're not doing that, what are you doing? Well, maybe you're going for DTs. Missile turret's going to finish literally at the right time. The exact right time. So MarineLord just kind of figured this out with feeling. Unfortunately, the DT in the natural is not that big of a deal. The DTs in the main were a much bigger deal. Just didn't have any units to defend against that, despite the missile turret being done. 13 SCVs still go down. Probably still worth it. Plus, the DTs have not all been scanned and taken care of, and that War Prism will be ever persistent. Also grabs a tank before losing those DTs, and that is looking pretty darn good, especially because the double Banshees have yet to do very much here. There is a robo for an observer, but where is the observer? It's just coming over now. MarineLord figures that's got to be the case and skedaddles. 4 probes down, but 14 SCVs. Ugh. MarineLord still ended up taking the worst trade. Unfortunately, despite his gut feeling being correct, he just didn't have the units in good enough positions, didn't pull his SCVs at the first sound, I guess, of the swipe. And still might not be the worst position if MarineLord had a command center also being built right now, but he doesn't. Whereas Shadown's third Nexus is finishing up literally right now. Once again, we have a situation where Shadown doesn't have any upgrades, but has enough economy to, in this case, make a bunch of gateway units. We don't have the Colossus like that first game. And I still feel a lot better for Shadown, even though right now, MarineLord's supply doesn't look that bad. Do keep in mind that there is that mule advantage, right, where 10 workers maybe isn't the worst for a Terran to be down, because they got 2 mules, maybe they're only down 2 workers with that, but because he had to use a scan and might actually even be saving scans for the eventual push, he's not really, the economies are probably as bad as they seem. Archon drop again. It's so funny to see Archon drops against Terran. I mean, it's a good idea if the DTs really aren't going to work out. You can even take out the tank. That would usually be fine. You could also bomb the tank with the DTs. But anyways, either way. There's so many more units for the Terrans that are projectiles. Literally all their units are ranged. That's the Terran race. So Archon drops don't look nearly as cool as they do versus Zerg. Wood Mines are also very effective at taking out War Prisms. So again, not as effective as Zergs, who maybe you run into Queens accidentally, you can fly away pretty quickly. So that's usually why I don't see it, but I like the idea. This is kind of an all-in here. Not pulling the SCVs, but I mean, it's got to do some damage. And it might just, I mean, he had to wait for all of his upgrades to finish, but it is a sizable army. And Shadown is playing a little bit dangerously here by not just instantly recalling his Archons. He knows the army is on the way. His Stalkers aren't even in position. They did not do a whole lot in terms of buying time for 1 or 2 more Warpins. But now he's collecting his army together. He's actually setting up for a big surround. Stalkers can even come in from the left side and help out a bit with that, or just run into the army and die. Oops, a daisies. Another warp-in is pretty crucial. The recall did happen on the Archons, and here comes the attack. Zealots from the backside as well. 2 Wood Mines going to get some okay hits, but not enough at all. And Stalkers target firing the Medivacs down as well. Leaves them with only 2 alive. That one should honestly die. Actually, he stopped focus firing, but regardless, that was a huge cleanup. The 2 Banshees that have been saved from earlier on do kind of get a couple of cheeky probe kills, but the entire army just got pushed back right there, and MarineLord is not in a position where he was really can get away with that happening. His 3rd CC is almost done, so he could get an economy back up, but Shadown just opened up a whole minute where he is not going to be attacked. He can get a 4th base, he can finally get upgrades. In this case, he's going to go directly to Storm, which probably makes sense. Since he didn't have any forges, it would take him a hell of a long time to actually catch up on those upgrades. But he could have a lot of control over this game. This is a terrible decision, however. I do not know about this, Shadown. That was very, very scary. I saw his army moving, and I thought, as soon as he realized there was no 3rd on location, he had to have backed up. No, he's continuing to commit. That is, oh god. This isn't, he does not have the army supply advantage. He doesn't have the army type advantage either, especially since so many of his zealots did actually die and don't do well in chokes. What he has is the ability to posture around MarineLord's 2nd attack and say, no, you can't do it until I say I'm ready to go. Banshees didn't actually die, ended up getting 3 more probe kills, but more importantly also stopped the High Templars that were gaining energy for Storm and scouted the High Templars, so kind of thought they died, if I'm being honest. Shadown's not supposed to be taking any more damage back at home, yet he just did. And is being very questionable out on the map like this. I feel like, maybe he doesn't have enough time to build enough zealots back at home and he still loses, but this is actually how you lose the game straight up, easy peasy. this was a not good idea. Not good idea. 3 immortals taken out for the price of a stim. Ugh, no, 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 no. This is terrible right now. Shadown is supposed to have this gigantic army on the high ground with Storm, working on his upgrades, grabbing a 4th Nexus, and instead has to now either choose to replace the immortals or just play dangerously and very dependently on those Storms, which I guess is his option. But still no 4th, only a single Forge. He'll have that +1 armor, but still be down in upgrades. And MarineLord is actually now advancing into a Ghost Academy, which will be very effective against what Shadown has. He's managed to get his 3rd CC down location and well saturated without any problems. Shadown didn't get exactly what he wanted from the minute right there. At all. Now he's going to try and catch MarineLord without EMPs, but even with a couple of Storms, I'm not sure that MarineLord is going to take enough damage from them. I mean, first of all, Ghosts will be available. They're about to pop out right now. And then second of all, his army is still very chunky. A lot of medevacs are actually alive and have energy. A couple of Storms would not actually cut it, I believe. We'll see. 2 Banshees still alive and repaired up, by the way, are getting more damage done, which is just insane. That was not supposed to happen. So many probes going down. 4th CC is going to have to be canceled here, and that's a nice snipe. Definitely take that and run away. Take it and run away. Take it and run away. This is really scary stuff. Doesn't have any sentries for force fields anymore, but Storms can kind of almost replicate a Storm. Reverse that. A Storm can kind of replicate a force field on this ramp here. But that is a dangerous game to play. MarineLord has a handful of Vikings. He's actually preparing for a very late game situation here. It's sniping the DT. By getting the complete all-around army. And the Vikings, in this case, don't have Colossus to tear down quite yet. They will help tear down the Warp Prism ferrying the High Templars. There are Colossus on the way. And we finally have double upgrades being made. So Shadown's going to catch up and actually exceed MarineLord's upgrades. His 4th base is finally put down. The Banshees did not manage to get a snipe on that. They've just been going after the probes, but still, they did a lot of damage. But Shadown is finally looking good and confident. I mean, after losing those immortals in the middle of the map, I was really scared for him. And I still don't think this is the engagement he really wants to take. There's the Storms to buy some time. EMPs do come down, but keep in mind that every EMP he uses on 1 High Templar, he misses on what is still remaining 2 High Templar. It looks like he actually still has 2 EMPs, though, so he's good to go. But if he had tried, you know, just mass EMPing, panicking a little bit, that could have been problematic. He should be okay. It's actually more so on Shadown to split his High Templars. Looks like he had 1 in that 3rd base. No EMP went down for that, though, to split away from it. Colossus also really derping there, just running into the Marauders, and there's not a whole lot of Zealots right now that's going to buffer for this army. A couple of Archons, that's about it. 2 more Storms are maybe available here, with the split of Marauders and Medevac still healing, looking very, very good. 1 Storm taken out of the equation, a 2nd Storm only hitting 2 Marauders. The Colossus trying to burst through the Marauders right now. This is where 3 Immortals would look fucking amazing. But it looks like the might of the Protoss army is going to be just good enough. Gotta be careful, though. There's a lot of Marauders left over. They got the upgrades. So you don't necessarily want to blink forward too aggressively, but it looks like the Archons are going to be able to help out. For all the High Templars at EMP, they did end up turning into Archons, which is why in the old days you would always prefer snipes. But with the steady shots that we have now, not really a dynamic you see very much anymore. 4th base is now saturated and safe. Banshees could maybe do some more damage, but we'll wait and see about that. 4CC was canceled earlier on, is finally done, completed, moving on to the 4th base. Things have really settled down here. Shadown down in supply, but with very, very crucial units that he needs to keep alive here. Crucial technology, and gonna eventually have those better upgrades, but he just took a fight that he really should not have once again, losing so much of that protective barriers for the Colossus that are now coming up. Imagine if he had the rest of his army that he just lost, protecting these High Templars, protecting the Colossus. Instead, he has nothing but the splash units and nothing to protect them. A simple split away from that army means that Shadown has gone from being only 20 supply down, something that splash damage absolutely could have taken care of, to being down 40 or 50, down a base as well. And the only thing he really would have going for him would be these upgrade leads, and that is simply not enough. Shadown really, I feel, losing this game based on his positioning in the middle of the map. He was trying to take control of the game, but with an army that wasn't actually prepared to do so. Now he's desperately trying to hold on 2 bases, as this 3rd is should be going down. That is a realistic expectation, but it's not going to be a hold. GG. MarineLord, he was dealing with some harassment in the main base, but it was not comparable. And that is MarineLord with the 2-1 victory.